with us tonight, besides myself and Steve. It's going to be a little confusing because we do have two Marks on the call tonight.
You do, Mark and Mark.
So Mark Metcalf, running for treasurer, is on with us, and we wanted to kind of get an update.
He's on the phone?
He's on the phone. He's not in the studio with us, and unfortunately, we couldn't get that timing right to get him here with us. But that's just the way it is when you're trying to do a statewide campaign. You got to put things have to be timed out correctly, and our schedule and his schedule didn't work out. But he's on with us, and he's able to. That's the wonderful world of Zoom that allows us to do this. So,
welcome
Mark,
to the show.
welcome on.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate your schedule agreeing with mine, and so we can visit with your audience.
Absolutely. Well, we do this every Thursday, and especially during election season, anytime we can get a plug from all the candidates that are running and get that messaging out to the people of Meade County, it's important for them to be informed, and that's why we want to make these opportunities available to anybody that's running for office, especially from the party. So we put this together for the GOP. So you have the entire floor, sir. Take us where we're going now. The primary's behind you. We saw you last at Fancy Farm. Great showing by the Republican Party. Not an empty seat on our side. We saw him fade out on the Democrat side, and the message was so strong. But since Fancy Farm and now, what do you see changing in the landscape all the way up to the polls?
What's changing in the landscape is Daniel Cameron has been able to get to know the people of Kentucky even better because there's been a focus on the Attorney General's office that wasn't there before the primary ended. Now that we're well into the general, and he did an outstanding job at Fancy Farm, carefully pointing out the major differences between himself and the governor. So I anticipate Daniel is gaining a lot of traction, a lot of positive notice, and I believe on Election Day we're going to be declaring Daniel Cameron the winner. For my own campaign, we started off with the message of transparency, accountability, support for coal, opposition to woke money managers telling us that they would not invest pension funds for profitable returns and instead for political ends. And one of those political ends is the destruction of fossil fuels, namely coal.
All right.
So we have carefully, and I think quite robustly, been able to put out the message that my opponent who favors the abolition of coal, my opponent who does not favor balanced budget, my opponent who does not favor tax relief for Kentucky families. We've pointed out the large differences between himself and our campaign, and we think that that's catching on with the public. I was in Davis County last night, and my opponent again returned to those messages, which, in my opinion, have failed Democrat candidates throughout this particular election cycle.
Sure.
Their policies drive up the cost of energy. We have large coal reserves. We have 8,500 years worth of coal at present usage rates.
Wow.
We have billions of untapped petroleum reserves.
Just to put that into perspective, 8,500 years, folks. When you're listening to this or playing it back, and if you're on tonight, 8,500 years. We're in the year 2023, 2,000 years after Jesus Christ died on the cross, and we're talking 8,500 years. We're talking the year 10,000.
I mean that's four times the amount, right? Basically, well,
absolutely. Just from one state.
3 times.
Just from one state.
Just from Kentucky.
Wow. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's
the reserves.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Oh, in the United States. Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. Corrected, but still, that is
older than Christ.
As we have plenty of fuel, and and this whole ESG movement had gotten upside down, and causing these these pension plans because they wanted to be politically correct. And for those who don't know what ESG is, it's the environmental, social, and governance rating, I guess is what they call it, by the some leftist groups that say, hey, we're not going to, like, they've gotten into banks and things and saying, hey, we're not going to loan you money to buy if you're buying stocks and investing in coal or
That's
oil.
correct.
And now they want you to, but you have to direct it to this ESG, high rated ESG stock, where it's not making any money. And the whole point of investing is so that you make money for your retirement. So anyway, so what are some of the things that you're going to do with the office that's going to help steer that? How are you going to steer that away in the future?
Well, Teddy Roosevelt coined the term the bully pulpit for the presidency. And I have a very small bully pulpit if I'm elected treasurer, and I intend to use it to advance.
You mean when you're elected treasurer?
Yeah, when you're elected treasurer.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And if I am elected and when I am elected, I intend to use the bully pulpit of that office to advance the goals I've stated, which is transparency, accountability, and that means supporting the coal industry here in Kentucky, our fossil fuels generally, but coal in particular, because the ESG movement favors the abolition of coal. And it's an unequivocal abolition of coal. But also to stand up to the woke money managers who want to tell us how to basically weaponizing our tax and pension dollars against the retirees themselves. We need to have profitable returns for our retirees. That's why we have retirement systems. But these wealthy elites have lost touch, and they have a large mouthpiece through the mainstream media, but they also have very small numbers. When you give people a choice between inexpensive energy and green energy, which, as we found, is much more expensive, much less reliable, people will take coal, natural gas, and petroleum every day. We're seeing a shrinking away from by the major automakers. Toyota, their former president, has spoken out against the electric vehicle movement. Ford just yesterday stated that they would take a $1.3 billion ding into their earnings because of the electric vehicles. And the EVs. But the important thing here is that Republicans stand for, what some have referred to as the cafeteria plan. There are lots of sources of energy. Let's choose the ones that are most abundant, that are clean. Coal is 30 times cleaner today than it was 10 years ago.
That's right.
Natural gas is getting cleaner every year. So is petroleum. The internal combustion engine is becoming, due to
technology,
the use of technology is becoming more efficient as well, providing more mileage for the same gallon of gas.
I was going to say that the current combustion engine right now doesn't necessarily burn off all of the fuel, right? Which is where your smog comes from. But when it burns it all off cleanly, then you have less smog. But I don't see how you could go completely EV in the world without a hybrid solution, whether it be hydrogen or motor and electric, or whether you go combustion engine. And even then, even if you did the two where they're combined, right, that makes more sense to me. I would rather invest in and utilize all of this energy that we have in your cafeteria formation and invest in combustion engines that can be made here in the United States, one, that meet technological advances that can get us to there, than to be putting all this money in EV. And then, we saw this in Texas when it froze. All this clean energy with wind and solar, and it froze. They were out, and they were doing the energy sharing, so you'd have lights on for 2 hours, they'd go right back off.
Rolling blackouts. They call it rolling blackouts.
It just doesn't make any sense.
We had rolling blackouts in Western Kentucky this past winter. TVA had never had blackouts.
Right.
But TVA had rolling blackouts this past winter.
And that's because they've taken coal-fired plants offline.
That's correct.
And
what they did to make up the difference was go to natural gas, which is stable, it's plentiful, it's, the other term is abundant, and it's less expensive than green technology.
And it is cleaner, and it is cleaner than just even the cleaner coal. It still burns cleaner than even clean coal, which, there's the whole point is that you have to have as Republicans, we know that we need a plan that gets us to cleaner and cleaner energy as we move forward. The problem is that the left wants to just force it to happen right now, and what they're going to do is break they're going to break what we do have, and we're going to end up going back. I mean, you're going to end up back in. If a lot of people remember the 70s when you had high gas prices, you had no, you had rolling blackouts. Well,
let's talk about that. So right now, currently, we have tapped into America's reserves for petroleum. Right, and we are not energy dependent on our own petroleum. Mark, I think you could probably bring some light to this too, given the research you've done in preparation for the job. But right now, I don't see any EV vehicles in our military, and if we've depleted our reserve stockpiles of oil in order to produce petroleum in the United States, doesn't that take us right back to the 70s?
It takes us back to the 70s with long gas lines, high prices, and oil embargoes from the Middle East. In other words, we do not have a stable, dependable fuel source. We have, due to the improvements in recovery of oil, one of which is fracking, we've reopened petroleum reserves, and the Permian Basin still has billions of gallons of petroleum that have not been extracted.
I know that area well.
Shale oils offer the same thing in the Dakotas. So the whole idea about being energy independent means that we are secure as a nation in being able to provide for ourselves. And under President Trump, we became a net exporter of petroleum.
Absolutely.
And I want to go back to just something that I don't want us to move past this. In eastern Kentucky, in Harlan County, you have at least 6 large mines going full tilt. They're selling their coal all over the country and the world. They're selling the metallurgical coal to, as you would expect, China. That's foundry coal. But they're selling their thermal coal to none other than North Carolina. Why? Because last winter, the same winter that we went through 10 months ago, what happened was the green energy plants failed. And so what did they do? They recommissioned their coal burning plants to reestablish the base load that they needed in order to provide energy to homes and businesses. So the green movement, the left movement, that seeks to destroy because they can't compete with fossil fuels, so they want to destroy them. And it is outright condemnation of natural gas, it's condemnation of coal, and it's condemnation of petroleum because they want to be rid of it. In other words, what's in the ground will never come out, according to the left. And basically, what does that do? It condemns it. It says you cannot use it. And so this source of wealth just disappears by law, according to the left. And I intend to fight that at the level that I can punch at, which is saying no to the woke money managers, the J.P. Morgans, the Citibanks, the Goldman Sachs, and tell them you're not going to manage Kentucky's monies, our pension monies. We don't need you. We'll invest in other money managers who are enlightened in their use of capital. And we're going to give a superior return to Kentucky's pensioners. That's the whole idea behind this
I mean,
this
a lot of
movement that I'm trying to spearhead.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people don't realize that that the treasurer has that type of power. That they can actually. I mean, because I didn't realize it until I think we had Allison Ball
Right.
on back one day. It was last year, and she was talking about some of this, and it was like, wow, you just don't realize that because you have some control over the pensions and how they're invested as the treasurer, that you actually can force these decisions and things to go the way that are more beneficial for Kentucky and our retirees, so that their money's actually there for them to retire. I mean, this is a big deal because the retirement funds and things, we talk about that all the time about, are we funding it? Republicans have been funding it since they've been in charge. So it's being funded. But if you're not funding it and putting it, investing it in the right way, and if we're getting forced by these ESG mandates and things coming from these, the thing is the mandates are not coming from, they're not coming down from Washington. They're coming down from Washington's pressure on individual companies. And these companies are then, their leadership is forcing these things to happen because they want to have favor with the Fed and things like that, so for borrowing money and things like that. And so it's policy driven by the White House and by the federal government that kind of twists the arm of these people, of these bank presidents and things, and they look at it. I don't know how it is that banks all of a sudden said, well, we're not going to make money anymore. Because the whole point of the bank was to make money, to be profitable by investing the money that they got back into the communities that they serve.
Not when they're borrowing at 100%.
Well, I mean, the thing is that for years they were borrowing at almost 0% interest, and so they were having free money. So they were. That's how they ended up with all this extra cash. And now that it's dried up somewhat, or at least they have to pay for their money.
Yeah.
Now that's why it's getting a little bit worse. So.
Hey,
Well,
Mark.
let's keep in mind two things here. One is that nobody voted on any of this.
No.
Nope.
There are no regulations out of Washington. There are no federal statutes out of Washington that require any of this. This is like men and women's sports. There are no laws that require this. These are unwritten rules. They're written certainly, but they haven't been endorsed as law. And these elitist groups seek to impose on others their own values that are not generally shared. It would be a handful of parents and grandparents in Kentucky tonight, or for that matter, any day, who want their daughters and granddaughters having to compete with a male the same age who will be taller and stronger, just biologically speaking, than their daughter, the same age. It's ridiculous. It has no place in women's sports because then
Absolutely
it's not women's sports. To take the same, by analogy, let's go right over to the oil business and the coal business and natural gas. That's never been passed. There are no laws. Alliance Coal was told, we'll loan by J.P. Morgan, we'll loan you money, but you got to be out of coal in 5 years. Now, I've talked to some of their executives, and they told me that. So the whole idea is to stifle investment and to put America on an energy standard which is unreliable and expensive. It's not right. And I think we'll be able to defeat it. We're not going to be able to defeat it easily. None of these movements can be. The left comes up with a different idea about every 10 to 20 years, and we spend that amount of time defeating those movements. They don't have value. In fact, what they don't build, they destroy, and that is what the left does. It's what communism does. It doesn't build, it destroys, and it kills as well. So
I mean, I always tell people along those lines, if you want to understand what we're seeing in our politics and in our communication out of our leadership, if you want to get an idea of why this is and why it seems so strange that nothing seems to be real and everything is it seems like it's all Orwellian. Well, if you go and read Animal Farm, right? George Orwell wrote Animal Farm as an allegory tale about the Russian Revolution, and because of that, it takes you right through what the Soviet and what the communist playbook was, the socialist playbook was throughout that, because they took over, and of course everybody seemed like they were all together, but the one that took charge, all of a sudden the rules changed and they were the only ones allowed to do anything. And so, right. And then when the other animals questioned it, they said, well, that's not what it said. Yeah. And they just changed the interpretation of what the rules were.
Do they even read that anymore in high school? I think
I don't know.
That's a required reading when I was growing up.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'll tell you what. It was not required for me.
No.
It was not a requirement.
I was an AP class, so it had it for me. So, hey, Mark, I do have another question. You and Andrew Cooper Ryder were neck and neck running in this primary before you got elected from the Republican Party as the nominee. He had mentioned when he was running the frivolous spending. He did a lot of research on a lot of the things that the Kentucky state has been spending money on under Andy Beshear. And like you said, it's a lot of these freaking policies that are bled down that come from Washington, from Joe Biden, right? Obviously, I would assume that you're probably going to pick up the torch and run after a lot of those things and just throw them out. But there was a lot of things that he talked about that was spent on transgender research and education for integration in schools and things of that nature. How are you going to get after that when you get into the office?
Well, let's remember that the legislature has forbidden CRT. CRT has as one of its adjuncts or maybe an axiom that transgenderism or transgender studies are a feature, and that has been forbidden by the legislature, and I intend to make sure that law is enforced. Men are not to be competing in women's sports.
Amen.
I will make certain that we don't have dollars, or to the extent I can, that we don't have dollars being focused or directed to those movements. The only way to really make certain is to see where these dollars are going and look at the fine print. And I've met with some of our legislative senior leaders to discuss these issues and tell them that I will be cooperative and collaborative with them in making certain that the monies that they pass for certain education purposes are not turned from the purposes that they've directed them. In other words, we're not going to send dollars to CRT and to transgender studies as long as I'm treasurer and know what they're attempting to do. And then on the back end, we have a woman who I hope will be elected auditor, who will also hold the same CRT advocates accountable.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
So, and then we have an attorney general. Hopefully, it'll be Russell Coleman, who will file suit against these entities, educational entities, who insist on spending monies in manners that have not been authorized.
I mean, right there tells you exactly why you should be. We should be looking at this and voting a straight Republican ticket.
Yes,
because
you were thinking the same thing.
Because you think about it,
it's racked and stacked to be.
All it takes is one position even down the ticket that can disrupt and hold hostage legislation and things like that. If you don't have a disruptor, and that's why you need people who will work with what the legislator is saying. We're not looking for dictatorship, right? We're not saying the Republican Party needs to have just iron fist rule.
Right.
What we're saying is that these are things that make sense, and they're very practical solutions.
It makes sense to Kentucky citizens.
Yes,
not the large masses of people outside.
We don't care about California. California and Californians are putting so much money into the state right now.
That's right.
Joe Biden is spending tons of money in this state right now. You have to look at. I mean, there's the Daily Wire had a story on this morning about this it's downright racist ad that Andy Bashir is putting out. Well, it's Andy Bashir, and it's a super PAC called is it Black Voters Matter or something like that? And anyway, if you get to see that, if anybody has Daily Wire, go out and check that out. I think it's already out on YouTube, so you can actually pull it down. Daniel Cameron's campaign sent us a link today, so if you go to their web page and get their news releases, you can see it. But it is downright racist. I mean, it's calling him an Uncle Tom. Doesn't call him Uncle Tom; it calls him Uncle Daniel. And but what they're saying, and it's done in a very
Right.
it's just in a downright rude manner.
Absolutely.
That I would never ever want to. I would never do that to another person or make somebody even try to sound that way. But at the same time, this is what we're up against, and that they are fighting as dirty as they always have. They pull money in from all over the place. George Soros has got money involved in Kentucky right now through these different entities, and it's just a shame. It's a shame that we have to fight this. And here we are as the Republican Party. We try to play things fair. There's a lot of things that we could go out and do,
but we can win this with voter turnout.
But we're just going to win. But yeah, exactly. We're going to win this because our voters are going to get out and they're going to vote. They're going to vote straight Republican ticket. They're going to put an entire team together of Republicans, and that team is going to go out and we're going to show them for the next 4 years that what can be done when you have cooperation and you're looking to the future. They are not looking to try to take things into the future so that we have better energy while we're still maintaining our ability to use coal and our other natural resources that we have abundance here. They are trying to go after. They're trying to switch that off before we have anything ready to go into the future, and it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us ultimately. It's going to cost us lives, because people are going to get people aren't going to be able to afford to go to work. People are not going to be able to afford to
a house,
and it's going to totally disrupt lives, and eventually people are going to. It's going to affect their mental health.
Yeah.
And you're going to see if we don't win this and continue to push hard, I think that we have we're going to see big problems in this country.
Mark, in the debate last week, they had Daniel Cameron was on, and I think he won that debate. He did a great job. He talked about Andy Bashir beat him up over and over again about a voucher program and all that other stuff. I'm all about where my kids go to school and school choice and all that stuff. Not a problem we're facing yet, but obviously, assuming we get a straight ticket win, you're the treasurer. He starts his catch-up plan, which was highly discussed in the debate. How are you going to get involved in that and support that right off the bat to make sure it's funded correctly so we can get that moving? Have you thought about that at all?
Well, I've already stated publicly, and you can go to the Commonwealth Policy Center, you'll see the differences between my opponent and me, and I'm squarely in favor of use of school vouchers. I believe that when you have competition, everybody gets better.
Absolutely.
And when people are moving away from the public schools because children aren't safe, children aren't getting educated,
or they don't, or for me, it's having Jesus in my kids' lives.
Or they want to have religious studies, or faith-based education, which I'm also favor. I went to school at a time when we did have faith-based education.
Absolutely.
And we didn't call it that, but we had, when I was
we called it history.
Second grader, we had Bible readings.
That's right.
Morning. We were prohibited from doing that. Now you can do it again. It has to be student inspired or student initiated, but that can happen, and you don't. And it's volitional. You can volunteer to go, or you can volunteer to go someplace else
That's right.
and not be exposed to that. But keep in mind that Andy Bashir, kept drumming the table, saying that this is going to take money away from the schools. It's not going to drain the schools.
It is not going to.
And let's keep in mind, where's that money coming from? It's coming from the local taxes.
That's right.
Some of those taxes, are going to Frankfurt, but most of them are staying right here. And so, most of the money that we're talking about would be tax dollars and vouchers that are supported by tax dollars. Now, I'm in favor of that because, as I said, I believe that this kind of alternative is valuable, and it still educates kids. I can see the argument on the other side. I understand their points. I just don't agree with them. And if education was better, you and I, the three of us, wouldn't be having this discussion.
That's right.
That's right.
That's absolutely
nearly
right.
unheard of 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago to have so many private schools popping up and having faith-based education. Why? Because kids were getting it at home, kids were getting it at school, and it was teaching the rules of life. It was boiling the 10 Commandments and into education. It was the underpinning in all of this.
Yeah.
The value of truth, the value of loving thy neighbor as thyself.
That's right.
This was infused into the education, but not so anymore. Teachers are prohibited, and it has reduced the quality of education. I want to go back and just comment on your point about the Uncle Daniel. What they're doing is trying to cancel Daniel Cameron.
That's right.
It's all cancellation. They're trying to cancel a man who happens to be black, and they're making him out to be false to his race. I thought the only race that counted was the American race.
Yeah.
I thought that was the only one that counted. Instead, they're accusing him of being a traitor to his race and being false.
It's criminal, right?
Yes.
How can we are a melting pot. First of all, we are a republic. We're not a democracy. Second of all, we are a union. We are a union of states, and we are a union of people, and together we are united. I have seen more divisiveness in the last, I'd say, before Donald Trump, into Obama, after Bush, into Obama, when the Stalinism got into office, and I mean, he openly talked about how he studied, Stalin and Leningrad, and all of these policies to divide the nation in order to control the populations. And it's ridiculous. We are so divided. I have so many friends of color and beliefs and all that other stuff, and I look at everybody as an equal. But to rip the American people down and divide us, I mean, we have a bigger problem right now with the whole Jerusalem thing in the nation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not the country's values to live this way so divisively that it's stirred up. And Daniel Cameron is. Look, we have a problem in America with our youth because of lack of education and the lack of parents growing
Animal
up.
Farm.
And Animal Farm, exactly. And we have, and I'm frankly sorry to say that most of the coverage that you see where there's riots and things of that nature, you see the African American culture. That is the ones that you see a robbery and it goes viral. It's African American. It's sad that it's always that, but there's also whites that are doing bad stuff and stuff. But
we had whites tend to do mass shootings more.
They do. They do mental health problems,
yes.
whatever. But the point is that the law and the crime has escalated, and we're seeing it so much in our youth right now. And
but it's forced that way. The media is actually looking for that, so they can show that.
That's right.
So they can create this underpinning of divide amongst us all, and I know that's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it's because we're always seeing it this way. One, you almost always see negativity in every one of these cases, and it's always the worst case scenario, and it's always it's like the story we did last night on the local thing up here at the courthouse where the couple went in and got arrested for disorderly conduct or what have you. And we talked about that. I mean, that's they're always going to just see the negative part of what happened, and they won't take they won't look look inwardly for what they did. And this couple's going all over the place looking. I don't know how many court cases they have pending everywhere because of all these different courtrooms or courthouses they're going into and doing stuff. But it's it shouldn't have gotten that far. But this is what we're seeing. We're seeing that on YouTube. We're seeing the coverage of the riots, and the thing is the coverage becomes a positive view of the riots. And we saw that all through the whole George Floyd thing, and it's like and then January 6th happens, and it's like, okay, well, these people went into the government building, and it's like and it's like but there were people just a few months before were burning down cities.
Yeah,
and
that's where I was trying to go. I couldn't get it out, but yeah.
And it's like and it's like, guys, why are we I don't think that they should not have went into the state into the U.S. Capitol. They should not have gone in to the Capitol. But if they would have stayed outside and protested, we would not have any conversation about this. But they didn't go in and try to kill people. They didn't try to tear down the Capitol. They went in to try to disrupt it. They shouldn't have done it. But that's not that was not an insurrection. They're trying to what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to redefine the
They give it a new definition. That's right.
That doesn't make any sense. Again, Animal Farm. It's just going to reinterpret it.
Nobody went in there armed and wanted to hold up the Congress and remove them from their seats.
There were no firebombs.
There was nobody being removed from their office or an uprising to overpower leadership. There was nothing of the kind in that.
They just took a protest. They went inside and protested inside.
Yeah. Well, what's your take on that, Mark?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, what's your take on all of that?
Well,
just the divisiveness, and then the problems we have in the nation where the uprisings are occurring. Go ahead.
Well, I try to put this in a framework of my experience in court. Would we allow people just off the street, citizens, to come into a courtroom and disrupt its business? No. We have bailiffs that keep order, and they're armed. We have judges who can direct the bailiffs, and we have contempt sanctions for disrupting court. And you cannot bring firearms into courthouses unless you're authorized to. I analogize that to what happened on January 6th, which was certainly, if not insurrection, it was certainly the disruption of business in the Capitol. Perhaps that was the point. The altercations that occurred with security in the area surrounding the Capitol indicated that violence was a problem. I worked for Congressman Harold Rogers, and I've worked in the Capitol. It's totally uncalled for. It had no place in our Republican democracy. It had every right to restore order and to bar those individuals from entering the Capitol. Like you, I watched with dismay this occurring. It made us look like a banana republic.
Right.
And it was not a proud day for America when that occurred. I've spoken with people who were there, and they told me that their conduct was peaceful and they were permitted to go. Others who were viewed as fomenting or encouraging the actions that resulted in arrests have not been so fortunate. I'm trusting that when all of this is said and done and the dust is settled, that those who should should have been convicted are convicted. Those who should be acquitted are, and we can move on. It was not a good day for America. We're still struggling with it. I think the Democrats want to keep raising that up as a flashpoint.
Right.
I think it's a mistake to do so, but they can continue to do it because they think they're going to get mileage from it. I think most Republicans look upon it as being something that should never have happened, and they're willing to state that.
That's right.
I am. I'm one of those people that says it never should have happened.
That's right.
But that the people who forced their way into the Capitol, and of course, we've seen in some instances where some people were just let in. You know,
But we've seen the same in inverse.
Draw the line and say you can come in, and other people storm their way in.
Yeah,
that's never
that's the
been made clear to
differentiation,
me.
right?
Yeah.
At some point, some people just because you were inside doesn't mean that you were actually in there doing anything nefarious. Some people got, like you said, let in after the fact, and that's the hope. I mean, just because you got inside, that should just be trespass or maybe disorderly
Inciting a riot.
I don't think it's inciting a riot. I think it was just it was disorderly conduct basically at that point.
But
But
inversely,
the first people who were actually for trying to force their way in and things like that, those people are the ones that had there's more to it than
Sure.
just disorderly conduct. But none of that is insurrection.
no, I got it. But inversely,
guys,
we have put this.
What I think about this is that it was not a good day for America.
No.
We need to move on from
Yeah.
it. We need to repair the wounds that have
Absolutely.
been inflicted from that, and realize we have much more in common in this nation
Yes.
than otherwise.
That's right.
Hey, speaking of that,
all of us want safe neighborhoods.
what
That's
do,
right.
what do you think of the new speaker?
I like him a lot.
I did too.
He's
I
one
think
of
it
the
was-
most well-spoken men
Yeah.
I have ever listened to. But let me also point out, everybody wants safe neighborhoods, don't
Yeah.
we? Everybody wants good schools.
Absolutely.
And everybody wants government money spent wisely and well and be fully accounted for. And that's what I stand for in this election. And like you, when I see what happens on television and see the things that happen on January 6th, it sickens me. Because I want to say that's not what we're here for. They could have accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish and never struck a cop, never broken into the Capitol. They could have walked away heroes.
I think
just by peacefully protesting
Yeah.
and doing what Americans have done from the beginning of this republic, and that is state your position
Yeah.
plainly and simply and respectfully, and then go about your business. That didn't happen that day. But as a candidate for statewide office, I see one of the sidelights of my candidacy is to be respectful of others, to dignify everyone who walks through the doors of my office.
All
treat them
Kentuckians.
the same way I would want to be treated if I was a guest in their office. I became county attorney when I was 31 years old. And before I took the oath of office, my father said, "Let me give you a piece of advice." He'd been county attorney before me. And he said, "Let me give you a piece of advice you didn't ask for. Return all your phone calls, never refuse a meeting, and treat others like you want to be treated yourself."
Yeah.
He said, "It's just the right thing to do." And he said, "There's a benefit to this. And that is that people will respond by reelecting you." And I've never lost a race in Garrett County.
I think
I've been
that's
elected
good
6 terms.
advice no matter what your profession.
Absolutely.
No matter what you're doing, that's great advice. And I would say your father was very wise in giving you that advice.
Well, he's 90 years old, still practicing law, and I am glad to sit at his elbow and listen to the stories. He was an assistant U.S. attorney under Dwight Eisenhower. He was a county attorney here in Garrett County for 28 years, and he has forgotten more than I've learned, and I'm in awe of him. So,
Yeah. Hey, I got a screen shot up. It's your donation page. You can go to WinRed or Secure WinRed. Mark Metcalf. You can Google it. WinRed Mark Metcalf, and you can make a donation to the campaign. Do you want to speak on that a little bit and how you're doing on your fundraising and stuff for the campaign? Speak to the voters.
Well, thank you. We just filed our most recent report. We'd raised over $75,000 in an environment where the top of the ticket is getting a lot of the money. We have raised more money beyond that, so I expect we'll raise somewhere between about 85,000, maybe 90,000 top end. But we're going to be competitive on the through the advertising cycle. I'm hopeful that listeners will go to the WinRed page. They'll choose to give and give as generously as they can, and also according to what their beliefs are. But I have run as a conservative Republican that dignifies the rule of law, that dignifies everyone who walks into my office, and who will operate his office in a transparent and accountable manner, and will seek to accomplish the goals that I have laid out over this election season. So it's, one of the beauties of our system is that nobody gave you all permission to interview me tonight. You just decided you were going to interview me, like you interviewed Allison Ball and Congressman Guthrie. And we're doing all of this without, hopefully, government ever snooping on us.
That's right.
Saying, well, you've got to have our permission to do this. So this is still a very great country, a very great state. And the kinds of things you guys have accomplished is you're reaffirming this. Every broadcast you all have reaffirms those freedoms, and it makes them harder to take away from us. So I'm grateful for this hour you've given me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and I know we're gonna wrap up here in a moment. But when you're elected, maybe we can come visit you one day up in Frankfurt, and you can kind of show us the ropes, so we can take people through and just do a quick look at what goes on in the treasurer's office. But maybe we can work something out. It'd be kind of a cool little follow up, and kind of see how things go.
Well, you're welcome to come anytime. We'll make that happen.
That's awesome. Well, Mark, good luck on this next week. Voting starts on November 2nd. It's already started for those who have excused absentee ballots, and a lot of people have already gotten any mail-in ballots. But by far here in Meade County, most of those votes are going to come in on November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and the 7th. Guys, those of you listening out there, get out and vote. Right, it's important that you get out and vote your principles, and we're going to ask you, yes, vote straight Republican ticket, because we believe those principles, this team has the principles to be able to take us into the future, and be able to allow us to raise our children with dignity and with those principles that we've grown up with.
Well, get to legislate.
That'd be nice to be able to legislate without having somebody having to worry about
the
lawsuits and things. So, but Mark, good luck. We asked you to go out and vote for Mark Metcalf on November 7th. So, thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. And Mark, good luck. We'll talk to you soon. You got anything last thing, Steve?
Don't forget to get out early voting 2, 3, 4 November, starting next week at the Farm Bureau.
It's at the Home and Garden Center on the fairgrounds.
Thank you. And Mark,
8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
We'll leave the last thought to you, Mark. Close us out.
Thanks so much, guys, and get out and vote, folks.
All right. Thank you, y'all.
Have a good night.
Good night.